This is Alex Howard from the Strata conference here in New York City. I'm here with Ken Farmer. He's a senior data architect at IBM, and he's been talking about the nitty-gritty of data science to many people here at the conference. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So, dive right into it. Why do data logistics matter?
Well, data logistics, the way I'm describing this is the management of data in motion. Okay, we have a lot of experience, a lot of tools, a lot of thinking about data at rest, about the consumption and the production of data, but moving data is the least glamorous, but one of the most fundamentally necessary and easily mismanaged aspects of data science. Almost everybody I speak to is talking about how this is kicking their butt. And this isn't new because data warehousing has been wrestling with this for 20 years. And we've never really solved the problem. We've just made it marginally easier.
Now, when you say wrestling for 20 years, we're talking about going back to the late 80s and 90s as some of these issues have really popped up and we've started to see this explosion of data in big businesses. How have data logistics changed over that arc of time?
Well, many of the current ETL tools that are used in the data warehousing space for data logistics really were born out of the mid and early 90s, at a point in time when people thought that the problem was the productivity of building all these feeds and mechanisms for moving data around. We discovered pretty early the problem isn't building it, the problem's managing it. Over the last 20 years, these tools have gotten better, but they've still failed to really solve the hardest problems, which are the analysis of the data, or handling how you would structure and configure them to truly make it practical to manage 20 data feeds, possibly running at tens of thousands of times per day. It's simply a hard problem that defies an easy solution.
Now, the amount of data has just absolutely exploded, right? People are talking about no longer megabytes, gigabytes, petabytes, right? Or as a friend Marshall Kirkpatrick says at Reader at Web, it's the exabyte time, right? There's just staggering amounts of information. Are the tools really getting any better, or are there some basic best practices that you're trying to apply within the scope of what's available?
The tools are somewhat better, and they can help a lot of teams. They're excellent fits for many teams to really kind of help impose or offer a consistent framework that can aid in the process. But it's really the methods that are missing, and this is an area where this field's kind of suffered because we don't have a recognized discipline. We don't have really a recognized and formal set of best practices or patterns. What we have is just some practitioners that have been very successful, and certain notions have emerged as more successful than others. It's still in a very, very primitive state.
Now, there was a phrase that caught my attention from your first answer, data at rest. And the reason it comes up is because I had the privilege or tough draw, depending upon how you look at it, of covering regulatory compliance for a while, and looked at the Massachusetts Data Protection Act when that came out. Now, how is the world of privacy and compliance, something that every big company has to think about, whether it's government or regulated industry, changing as a result of big data?
Well, one of the things some companies have discovered is that when you combine different sets of data, you make the data far more powerful. And that's far more powerful for either business insights or far more powerful for, let's say, an attacker to take advantage of that data to really pinpoint extremely vulnerable and high-value machines. So one of the things that's happening is that as different sets of data are being recombined, some companies have stepped forward and crafted policies to recognize that they are more valuable and need an extra degree of protection. That might be one of the ways.
That's definitely an important way to think about it. Often the intersection of data sets is where you get unexpected insight, and that's just as true for people who are trying to exploit systems as those who are trying to protect them. So this is the last question here, and this may be a bit of a loaded one, so you'll forgive me. I've heard someone say here that data warehouses are where good data goes to die. Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I disagree, but I'm very familiar with how this can happen. A data warehouse is still today, 20 years after their initial emergence, have an extremely high failure rate. But that failure rate tends to be due to factors that data science is not addressing. It's due to factors such as politics. When you're trying to pull in data from many systems and you have to wrestle with some of the data producers who don't want to give you the data. Okay, it fails because of mistakes in the data logistics, and data warehousing is far ahead of data science in that space. Okay, it fails because of lack of flexibility of the data warehouse databases. The data models and the architectures aren't terribly flexible. On the other hand, once you start delivering a lot of value through, let's say, Hadoop and HBase or whatever, you find that pretty quickly you get pinned down. You lose a lot of your flexibility there as well. So what we're seeing is that data warehouses end up becoming inflexible and painful if they are operated by IT that is more focused on SLAs than on delivering business value. And the same thing will happen to any activity that's pulling in vast amounts of data across the organization.
Okay. There you have it. I think you probably handled Lota's question as well as I could have asked for in that context.